This morning we're going to have a conversation on a book that was one of my old-time favorites. How many of you have ever heard of your Erroneous Zones? Yes? We got one, we have two. Do you know how old that book is or was? Does anybody have any idea? I encountered it probably around 1980, so what's that? That's 40 some odd years ago. I think it was I don't know if it was my first self-help book, but it was a meaningful one. It was written by Wayne Dyer. And as I get older, I'm realizing there's a whole audience who doesn't even know who Wayne Dyer is, right? And it happened to be one of the better books around at the time. And I thought this week I'd get it and I'd come up and tell you all about it. And I found that I got lost this weekend in reading it because there's a lot to it. If you're in any of the helping professions like Solomon, or you'll like the book because he doesn't just get at the surface of things. He asks, the whys and wherefores and what the patterns are that are underneath that are creating your life. So you can see how that ties into religious science. Religious science is always going to be about your thoughts, your thinking, and your consciousness. And the book, Erroneous Zones, that's a term he coined, which would talk about the things that we have going on within us that, for one reason or another, seem to be self-defeating. So we're functioning here today with a few deficits. I'm going to use my laptop because we have an issue with the printer, but so I apologize for my 4 or 5 minute trying to get the technology to work, but I have the computer in front of me. And I was enjoying spending time with this material this week. In the beginning of the book, Wayne Dyer says, take charge of yourself. Now, you've heard us say that 1,000 times in 1,000 ways. We tell you to take charge of your thinking. We tell you you are a unique person in all the world, right? We tell you that you're part of this divine energy. You're part of God. And you're greater than you know. And why is that? Because if you are one with the Father, or you're one with the Spirit, that means inherent in you is something that's spectacular. Now, most of you who are listening, except some of you are students, you really do know this, but most of you are new, you don't know how great you are. You have no clue. In fact, if anything, your opinion of yourself is just the opposite. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel like I'm anything. I don't think anything's going to happen to me that's worthwhile. You have all this stuff that's been with you since you're a little girl or little boy. So if you come into a teaching like this, you're going to learn, people tell you, you're going to hear things like, you're amazing, you're wonderful, your value can't be established, it can't even be known, it's greater than you can ever imagine. And that's really something to hear because you don't hear that everywhere in the world. I know my self-esteem was not very high by the time I crawled into a 12-step program. The year was 1980. I had pretty low opinion of myself. Now, my outward presentation might have been that I'm all of that, but inwardly was something else. So the 12-step programs that you hear me talk about often, because I know we have a fair number of people who are listening, who are part of we have hundreds of people who listen to us every week. A fair number of them are in some type of program of recovery, some spiritual program. And what they're learning there, whether they know it or not, is as they take inventories, they start to realize their worth. They start to learn to change. They start to learn to love themselves. And it's a process. It takes time and it takes willingness. They used to tell me willingness is the key. Willingness is the key that opens all the doors. So I can't change if I don't want to change, right? You can't change me if I won't. It requires something within me that wants to evolve. The thing I've learned through Ralph Waldo Emerson and these teachings and just about everything I've ever read is that there's a power within me that's moving me and in all of you. that wants to get your attention, wants to express itself in a bigger way, and it will if you'll let it. One of the Ralph Waldo Emerson, if you ever want to read somebody, or just go to his quotes for starts, there's this imprisoned splendor that's in you. There is this spirit that I think he said is wooing you. Well, how the hell does that happen? It's because when you're doing things that really are not worthy of you, and you're all caught up in living a life that is not very big, there's something within you that wants more. Reminds me of a song from Star is Born. Are you longing for more? Would you like to express your life in a bigger way? And the answer is most people, yeah, but you don't know how to, and then you have all that stuff working within you that would hold you back. So all these lessons, everything we do is designed for you to step up and step out of those types of thoughts, those pattern of thoughts which produce feelings, which would say, I'm not good enough, I'm less than. And so we're here to help you learn to fly and to evolve and have more fun and free yourself. So let me go to some of my notes for today, because I practically reread that book, though that wasn't entirely possible. Dyer says, take charge of your life. The essence of greatness is the ability to choose personal fulfillment in circumstances where others choose craziness. See, you don't have to be a part of the flock doing what they're doing. You can go down to New York City, you can go down to Times Square, and you can see people running around, and you don't know what they're thinking. But the thing is, there's a lot of people out there acting, and they're reacting to everything. You have the ability to be the calm person in any room, in any place. You have the ability to be balanced and non-reactive. If you were in a 12-step program, I would say you have the ability to work a program if you want to. You have the ability to see peace instead of madness that Dyer talks about. Wayne Dyer wrote many, many, many books, and they're almost too many, because I felt like once I read them once or twice, I kind of understood what he was saying. That's just me. I'm sure that the rest were wonderful. But the one your Erroneous Zones caught my attention when I had to have been younger, obviously, I think it was 74, 75. He had the opportunity I think he was a physician and psychologist. He had the opportunity to observe human nature from every angle you can imagine. And it's evident in this book and the rest of his books. So some of these are going to be his words and my words. He said, we all have erroneous zones, these flaws and these things, and that makes us human. People wish to improve, and it's a question of just staying at it. This book is very useful. It's a toolbook. So I would recommend anybody picking it up after I spent the time I did with it this weekend. I forgot how good it was, because it'll help you explore the unknown. It will help you free yourself from the past. It will help you no longer be afraid, so you can step out of places you've been and start to learn to be more authentically yourself. His concepts won't sound altogether new, because I think many of the things he taught are now in books like You Can Heal Your Life came later. You can watch Oprah now, for God's sake. You'll hear Wayne Dyer's words. These ideas have evolved. They've become part of the mainstream. Some parts of the book may give you the impression that he's stating the obvious, but it's very often that these statements that confront us with our nonsensical behaviors and negative habits. So this is a book that could be read and read again. One of the preludes said, this is a book you ought to pick up every couple years, like you would a textbook or any of these great books, because you'll continue to be in a different place and get information from it. In our classes that we teach here at the center, Thursday nights and other classes we teach, we learn that people hear and perceive what they do based upon many of their own values, beliefs, prejudices, and personal history. I can be in a room with Judith and Solomon and any of the other folks that are here, and Jimmy could read something, and I promise you, 10 minutes later, if someone asked us to repeat what Jimmy said, we would all have an entirely different recollection of what he said. Why would that be? And he said the same thing, and I've done that. I used to do couples therapy, and by that I mean, you would have a conversation with two people, then you'd ask the person, what did Joe just say a couple of minutes ago about that? And you'd be absolutely amazed how the partner will say something, you were there, you heard it, and you can say, that isn't what Joe said. And then you ask Joe what Joe said, and Joe will say, you'll be amazed because nobody really hears anybody in the same way, So it's interesting. That's something if you're in a relationship, if you want to improve your communication, your relationship, maybe some period of the week, like on a Saturday morning or afternoon, sit down and have a conversation with one another, and then, make some fun of it. Say, what did you think I just said a couple of minutes ago about this and that? And you'll be absolutely amazed how that works. And you'll think, oh my God, I thought I was a good communicator. Well, you're communicating from your filters, and somebody else is listening to you through theirs. And if you go back to Krishnamurti, who was another person that everybody loved years ago, in the book, The Awakening of Intelligence, he would say communication between two people, it's amazing if it happens, because I listen through Greg ears, Greg eyes, which means I hear things through my own filters, and I see things through my own filters, and then I want to communicate with you, and then you're going to hear me through yours. So communication is an interesting thing. We can work on it to make it better if we care enough to listen more and to ask people and dialogue back and forth. That's a little tool. So in this book, the question comes in, do you want to feel better about your life? And the answer is always going to be yes. Looking at yourself at depth with an eye toward changing might be something you say you're interested in doing, but people's behavior oftentimes speak otherwise. People say they want to change, but then they don't really want to do what's required to change. Change is tough, Mr. Dyer said. If you're like most people, every fiber of your being will resist having to take on the work of eliminating the thoughts that support your self-defeating behavior. Mr. Dyer, Wayne Dyer himself, loved this book. He wrote in different places. I think it was his favorite, probably because it was his first and it was successful. And much like Louise Hay's book, which came later, he wrote the book for everyone. He didn't try to make the book scholarly. He used language that could be understandable to anybody if they wanted to. It's not like you twitch your nose and everything will change. He claimed, I tried to avoid intricate explanations, largely because I don't believe being happy is a complex thing. Being healthy is a natural state, and all of us can get there if we want to. It requires a little bit of focus, dedication, clear thinking, choosing to be happy, continually choosing to be happy, and always having some humor. He said these are the ingredients of prosperous or effective living. He said, I don't believe in fancy formulas, going deep, deep, deep into my past, like a psychiatrist might, to begin to discover where your unhappiness began. Most of us have a pretty good idea of what happened to us when we were children. And of course, when we're children, important things happen because they will shape us until we begin to change some of those stories around. And he said, I hope this lesson, this book, Your Erroneous Zones, might inspire you. And I would say, since I'm just doing notes from it, from reading it, I hope it might cause some of you to pick up the book, because there's some of you who are always ready to take a deeper dive and kind of work on yourself a little bit more. This book would be very useful. His approach to achieving happiness relies on self-responsibility. Okay, that's very much what we teach here. You know, Louise Hay would say, and Ernest Holmes too, if it's in your life, whatever it is, it's in your consciousness. Your consciousness is the totality of your knowing, and it plays out in your day-to-day living. It's not good or bad, it's just the way it works. Each of us have the power to change our lives. Most of you have heard bits and pieces of what he writes. You don't need to be a professional in counseling or therapy or a doctor or metaphysics to have more effective living. You learn by becoming more committed to your happiness and by observing, what works, how your thinking impacts your life. This is something that we work on every day while helping others to make similar choices. I know that I used to be a therapist. I did my best. I was always working to help people, but in the process, I was always working on myself. So today we're going to look at a few common erroneous zones or self-destructive behaviors and what brings them about and how to deal with them. You might relate to a few, and some more than others. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and you can do it for yourself. You can assess whether you're in this pattern or not. Certain types of behaviors we're talking about are everyday acts that may seem perfectly acceptable. But these everyday things we do, in reality, can be harmful to our own happiness, or could be holding us back from shining. And why do I say that? You're all here to do what? Shine. Hopefully, right? Realize, my God, this is a brief life, and I'm here to shine and to enjoy. I'll ask you once again to pay attention to your thinking and all the hundreds of thoughts that stream through your mind daily, because life is always acting on your thinking. We always ask you to inquire within, or at the very least, we want you to start to pay attention to what it is you're thinking and spinning. See, I could look good on a Sunday morning, or you could, and we can all look good, but what's spinning underneath, right? Thursday night I asked, what's it really like being you? And I'm not wanting to know your personal business. Honestly, I have enough of my own to figure out. But the question is, what's it like being you, right? Because that thing that goes on, that whole body of thoughts that you think, nobody knows it, you know it. But the thing is, it's shaping your life, whether you know it or not. You draw things to you because of that, I don't know if you say that gestalt, that body of thoughts, that tendency of thoughts creates experience. And you have the ability always to, we say, to change the direction of that. But and to do that, though, you really have to start working with your thinking. And in the Louise Hay work we do on Thursday night, we're always telling you, if you find yourself doing negative stuff and you're negative, somehow you got to do what? Derail it, stop in the name of love. I'll invoke Diana Ross, anything. Do what you need to do to stop that and do what? Turn it around. Wherever you are, wherever you catch yourself, stop and turn it around. Why? Because if you do, things will start to change. But the thing is, that's the work. It's having the willingness to harness that type of, harness your thinking. I just spoke in another recording this week. They teach our material to children in the Quick Start program, and there's a stagecoach, and there's stallions, which represent power, and people live in that stagecoach, and the stagecoach is their consciousness, their thoughts, and the thoughts are the things that propel you forward. And the invitation this teaching is always to get out of the coach, step out on the ground, step forward, get up on the platform, and take the reins. And that's Ernest Holmes saying there's power for good in the universe, and you can use it. Thing is, but you got to have the willingness to get up and you use your executive power to direct it. Otherwise, all those thoughts that you're thinking in your head randomly all the time, they are creating your life. You're not directing them. So it's going to be like one day it's going fine, another day you're going to hit a gully, you're going to, you have power to use if you choose to use it. So here we are in our lives, and we have all these things we do, certain behaviors, and we go through things, and we have lessons and tough times, and why do these things keep on happening? And why do we keep doing them if they're injurious to ourselves? This is from not Chopra, but Wayne Dyer. He says, why do I keep doing this? As you examine each area of your life, or the erroneous zones that are in the book, you'll understand that there's something you're getting out of it. If you're doing something over and over again that's causing you some discomfort, some pain, you're getting something out of it. Now, what it is, you don't have to examine for yourself. You'll discover that the reasons for keeping what he called neurotic behaviors are fairly consistent across all these erroneous zones. He says, it seems sometimes safer to hang on to learned responses, old ideas, old people, even if it's self-destructive. I got this person, I have this job, I have this thing. And it seems sometimes safer just to, I'm going to hang on to that because I know what that is, even if that what I'm hanging on to. It's really, from a distance, you'll see this is probably not the smartest thing, but we do it. You can eliminate having to change if you keep hanging on and trying to keep everything the way it is, and you can eliminate taking responsibility if you can keep all these erroneous zones intact. It's a lot of work, but a lot of people stay in tough situations, bad situations for far too long because they don't trust life and they just stay in them. And that's kind of like hell on earth, but it's what a lot of people do. Naturally, people want to feel safe and secure. So that's the way a lot of people live their lives. Many people fear change and what will happen next. I'm going to hang on. I don't want to change. I don't want to go anyplace. Where am I going to go? What's going to happen to me, right? So we begin to see our psychological maintenance system function. And it functions to keep all the blame off of you and then stop change if you can stop it. But, if you're around our teaching long, you can't, but people persist. They stay there. And they don't want to think too many new thoughts, because if you entertain too many thoughts, it's like you come into a teaching like this and all of a sudden you start to challenge your belief system from the time you're a kid. Because we're not going to teach you you're a sinner here. We're not going to teach you you're born in sin. We're not going to teach you there's anything wrong with you. We're going to teach you that you are an individualization of spirit. You have a father, well, heavenly father, mother, whatever you want to say. You are one with life, and you are a no-limit person, and there's nothing that can stop you or hold you back except for what? Yourself, right? So people maintain these self-defeating and thinking patterns. If you can learn to release these patterns or these needs, you start to step up and you start to move towards the light and you move forward. Not everybody on this call is ready. Usually when I talk about some of these subjects, and there's going to be a couple things I'm going to talk about today, I might lose a few people because people don't always want to embrace change. They don't really want to take responsibility either. And when we teach responsibility, we're never teaching anybody to be to blame for anything. It's just if my consciousness is such a place and I'm broken or something and I'm hanging on and I'm acting out, it doesn't mean that anybody's bad. It just means that's where they are. So we want to welcome people here because people come in different places of life. Their consciousness is in different levels. And all of us are evolving, so we're moving forward. It might not look like we are, a few steps forward, a few steps backward, but as spiritual beings, every one of us are moving forward all the time. So let's look at a couple of the common difficulties and how they surface. Why we do the things we do, and look at a couple of the strategies. Certain themes seem to need to be reviewed over and over again in our life in order to learn a lesson. I know anybody who's involved in a 12-step program has always heard this one. It's a story, it's a tale of someone going down the street and around the corner and they fall into a hole in the sidewalk. You've heard it before, right? And they do it the next day, and they do it the next day, and unbelievably, they do it the next day. They go down the street, around the corner, and they fall in the hole in the sidewalk. And you'd say, why the hell eventually, and no one knows why, after a long period of time, they take a different road. Imagine, after just doing the same junk over and over and over again. Sometimes life's lessons must be experienced over and over again so we can really understand and learn the lesson. There is a teacher, Arlene, who always used to say, it's the same song, a different verse, a little bit louder, a little bit worse. We just drag ourselves through those things. Now, there's some of you who will learn quickly, and you will only do it once and you'll learn the lesson, but many of us don't learn that fast. In the book, Your Erroneous Zones, it's kind of quite an involved book, but there's really two central ideas. The first involves the idea that you're always at choice. You always have the ability to choose something different. You're not locked into anything, though you might think you're locked into everything. You're not. You always have the ability to be in a new moment. You potentially can change anything and everything. So you can be in a moment where everything's possible. And it doesn't matter if you're 28 or you're 88. Because I know I have callers on the phone in their 80s today as well as in their 20s. You can change your life and heal your life. You can create a life where anything is possible. You can choose and you can choose again if you really want to. I'll go back to the 12-step programs. Willingness is the key. It always has been and always will be that opens the doors. You have the power at your disposal if you step up and you realize, I have power. One thing I learned 40 years ago, your feelings are not facts. I used to think they were. And I'd be hurt and I'd be angry and everything, but that was so. And you're all whatever you are. And so I was not very mature. But you can learn to direct your energy, okay? A daily inventory of your choices, your thinking, your thoughts, your actions can be really helpful, or a journal, it can be very helpful. The idea is reflect a little bit on what you're up to, what you're doing. The morning would be great, the end of the day. Some of you will do a 10th step. A life that's not examined, it's been said, is not worth living. More than that, that goes back to Socrates. Know yourself, because if you know yourself, you have a chance to see what you're up to and you see what you're creating. If you're living in denial and you're just living out your life and you're reacting to everybody, you're probably not going to make too much progress. So you have power to use. I think it will help you to reflect a little bit on what your thoughts are, because your thoughts are creative and your actions are, and it might be helpful to have a prayer partner or a sponsor or someone you can be honest with. Journaling's also another tool, as I said. We have endless thoughts running around in our head. Just think about what it's like being you each week. My mind just goes and goes and goes and goes, and I have to slow it down, because if I don't, it's like I'm all over the place. So we want to learn to take a pause, a pause that refreshes and slow down. And we move fast, right? We want to slow down and we want to get centered, because if we slow down and we get centered, we realize we have power at our disposal, and life will respond to us. And we can redirect all of our thinking. Your life is a reflection of all you know. So if you're new to the teaching, we talk a lot about consciousness. Well, what's consciousness? Judith, you're going to tell me, what is consciousness?
Your total awareness.
Judith says it's your total awareness.
Your belief system.
Your belief system. I'm asking her while I sip a coffee here. So it's the sum total of what I know. I know a lot of stuff. I mean, I've been around a long time, right? And now, it doesn't mean anything that I know is right. It just means I have a lot of information. And I would like to think it's pretty good, some of it, because I've been around it. And furthermore, I've been in the teaching, which means I've been working with a lot of these erroneous ideas, and I've actively been working on canceling out the negative ones and trading in the lesser ideas for the greater. So the sum total of whatever I know plays out in my life. And it's not personal. God isn't out to get me. Nobody's out to get me. I have learned a lot, and by that I mean, so now, whatever it is you understand and there's a law of attraction. It starts to attract people, places, and things into your life. And there's not a one of us, myself included, that are a finished product. We're all working on ourselves, and we're all growing, and we're all evolving. And the thing is, Louise Hay would have said, never, never judge anybody, and never, never, never criticize yourself for where you are, because you are a spiritual being, and you are unfolding, and you're moving forward in love and light. And God, just don't judge any of these folks. That whoever they are, wherever they are there by right of consciousness, and they're evolving, and have respect for their process. You might be in a different place. You don't envy others, and it's have respect. You might remember your own life back 5 or 10 years ago. It might not have been too wonderful, and we want to be grateful for the growth that we've had, and we want to nurture other people. The other thing we do here is we understand that everybody is a spiritual being, and we want to have that recognition to love ourselves, learn to love ourselves, and extend that to other people. With inspired thinking, which we all can have inspired thinking because we're part of spirit. We bring spirit in. With inspired thinking and motivation and a little bit of effort, we can be anything we choose to be. The second theme for today and throughout the book is to start taking charge of your present moments. If you find you've had a bad morning, you don't have to wait till tomorrow. You can do what? Yes, you can stop it. You can change your mind. You can start your day over at 2 in the afternoon. An expression, slogan, it's never too late to start your day over. That means that even if it's 9 o'clock at night, it's Raymond Charles Barker would also say, yesterday ended last night. So stop all the garbage that you're doing, that you have a resentment you're brewing, you're angry at this person or that person. Slow down, take a pause, meditate, do an inventory, do whatever you can to take yourself out of that place where all those emotions and thoughts are running you. Because we want to get back to this main point here is start taking charge of your present moment. When you see you are adrift and you see that you're in some type of a story of somebody's done me wrong and life is unfair, whatever you're spinning, stop. Take the pause, slow it down, and turn it around. Start to make your life about you and your thoughts. I learned the hard way through many, many years of therapy and groups of every kind that I wanted to be less what we called other referred. In other words, what you think of me over there is really nothing, it's not my business. I'm not here to people please, I'm not here to do anything. I'm here to live my life authentically. So we want to start taking charge of what we're thinking and stop taking everything personally and stop reacting. We want to learn how to be here now and see if we can be here now and know that there's goodness here and know that you have power. And you can use your power to the extent you can pull yourself out of the past and bring yourself into the moment. Wayne Dyer said there's only one moment in which we can experience anything, and that's going to be this one. Okay? Why do you have to drag in yesterday and today? Anybody think about that? What's the need for bringing in what happened last night, the argument you had last night and today? Or what happened? What's the need for that? So we have this glorious now, in this moment we can choose to be happy. We can know that we're powerful. We can know that anything's possible. But if you have a need to bring in all the junk from yesterday, last week, and the resentments, then you're just going to mess up today. Dyer said in the book, years of our lives, and we don't like thinking of it, but years of our lives have been thrown away and wasted by dwelling on these ancient hurts, dwelling on the things that people have done to us. Just think it. You don't like to think of it. I don't either. But where, you've been in miserable situations and you've been full of worry and all that. We've really wasted a lot of time with that. And once you know that that's happened, you want to personally get to the point where I don't have the time for that. Honest to God, I lived on this planet for so many years, and most of the years are behind me. So do I want to get caught up in that? Do I want to fritter away that time and all that stuff? Do I want to do counsel the wicked and keep all that going and who's done me wrong and what's wrong and all of that? That's a personal decision. I remember the story. I don't go to the Bible or Scripture too darn often, but I always remember that part where Jesus was maturing and his mother was wanting him to do something to help her. And his answer was what? I need to be about my Father's business. See, there comes a point in your own life where all your friends might be doing all these things, talking a bunch of garbage, doing a bunch of stuff, and it's okay, it's where they are, right? But do you want to be there? Do you want to stay there? Do you want to use your time that way? We want to be less concerned about the future, and we really don't want to be living in the past. So let's be resolved to have each day count and be more consciously lived. It doesn't make any of us happy to think that we've squandered any part of our life. The fact is we're always doing the best we knew at the time, but now we know more. And so, if you know more, I don't want to be caught up in seeing you remember the three monkeys, see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. I don't want to be caught up in seeing what's wrong, hearing what's wrong, and talking about what's wrong. I really don't want to have time for all that. More and more we want to live, feel, and stay plugged into what we call spirit. You have the ability to turn to spirit any time of any day. Okay, you're one with it. It's in you, operating through you. So, if you can just take that pause and center yourself and know that I am as God created me. I am supplied and supported. And if you come into that experience of the now and knowing you're connected, you'll bring yourself into a place of happiness, and you'll start to have happy, fulfilling moments again. And that's what we aim for. Dyer said self-defeating behaviors, or erroneous zones, are efforts at living in moments that are other than the current one. So what he's basically saying, if you have self-defeating behaviors, somehow or another you're thinking about the future, or you're thinking about the past. You're clearly not where? Here and now. So he suggests for all of us to be free to choose what we want to think and to be in new moments. And he said these are the keys to a happy life. Rather than give you the whole book, which is not possible, I realized after I spent hours with it, I have a list of questions from the book that are designed to measure your capacity to choose happiness and fulfillment. So are you ready for a self-assessment? And I'm not going to grade you, and you're only going to know the answers. But it's a little quiz where you can measure your own personal capacity to choose happiness and fulfillment. Are you ready? Okay. So I'll go through the questions, and you can either say to yourself, yes, I am. I'm at this point where I've got some self-mastery. Or you might say, no, I'm not there yet. Or you might say, no, not yet, right? And that's okay, because we're all working on ourselves, right? We're all evolving, and we're different places. The little quiz is for us to determine where we are, along with the continuum of self-mastery, or living what we call the affirmative life. And so if you're not doing well on the quiz, don't worry about it, because we begin wherever we are. A yes response would indicate you've achieved some personal mastery and you're effective at making positive choices. First question is, do you believe that your mind is your own? Do you act and live like your mind is your own? The second question, are you capable, do you think, of controlling your own feelings? Or do they run you amok all the time? Next question. Are you motivated from within? And deeply? Are you motivated from the inside? Or does your motivation come from the outer and what other people are doing? Next question. Are you free from the need for approval? Can you live from a place where you just do what you do and you're not looking to the right or left for anybody to give you the nod? Are you free to live without the need of approval? Next, Do you set up your own rules for conducting your own life? Do you trust yourself enough, right? Are you there yet? Next, are you free from the desire for fairness? Okay. I could explain all these, but it'll take forever. Next, 7, can you accept yourself as you are, and can you avoid complaining? Are you able to walk through your life with self-acceptance? And are you able to avoid complaining? Next, are you free from making other people your heroes? Are you free from what he calls hero worship? I want to explain them all, but I can't. Next, are you a doer rather than a critic? Or you can ask it the other way. Am I a critic or am I a doer? 10, do you welcome the mysterious and the unknown into your life? Do you look forward to the mysterious and the unknown? Do you welcome it? Keeping in mind, the yes answers are the ones that show self-mastery. And then some of us are very much in between on some of these. Can you avoid describing yourself in absolute terms, like I am always this, I am always that, I think that, you know? Are you able to avoid describing yourself in absolute terms? Next one, which ties into what we do on Thursday night with Louise. Hey, can you love yourself at all times, even when, whatever? Are you able to love yourself at all times? Self-acceptance and self-approval. Are you able to do that? The next, have you eliminated dependency in your relationships? That's a big one. Are you able just to be good with people however they are, without expectation? Have you eliminated dependency in your relationships? Next, have you eliminated blame from your game? Have you eliminated fault finding? In other words, I don't have the need to talk about any of these people. Have you eliminated it? I mean, that goes back to like Jesus. Are you innocent of judgment? Have you eliminated all the blame and fault finding in your life? If not, you can go to chapter 8 and read that in the book. Next, are you free from feeling guilty? Do you live your life without guilt? Now, most people are going to be kind of like, yeah, I've done work on that. But that's the question. Are you free from ever feeling guilty and living your life with guilt? Next, are you able to avoid worrying about the future? The whole chapter on that. Are you able to avoid worrying about it? Next one. Can you freely give love to people? And can you freely accept it? Are you able to do that? Or do you block it? But the question is, can you give and receive love? A few more. Have you eliminated procrastination as a lifestyle? You're always waiting for something to happen, and you're sitting on the fence. Have you come to a point where you trust yourself and you've eliminated procrastination? It's kind of like you trust yourself to know what you know and to do what you do and all of that. Next question. Can you enjoy life spontaneously when everything does what it does? Today everything went wrong before I got up here, and I don't have my paper. I just have to go on and can I enjoy life? And I'm finding yes, I can a lot of the times. Not always, but can you enjoy life spontaneously without having a plan? Next question. Can you appreciate and create humor in situations where, things maybe are, going in a different direction? Can you appreciate the irony and the humor, and can you create humor? Next, are you treated by others the way you want to be? I think of this one as a trick question, but here it is. Are you treated by others the way you want to be? Next, are you motivated by your potential for growth rather than some need to repair your deficiencies? I had to think about that one a long time. Am I motivated by my potential for growth rather than a need to repair my deficiencies? So that's quite a list. And if you were to pick up the book, if you got any negatives in there or halfway points, there'll be chapters in that book where you can go into it more and more and gain some more insight. It's quite a list. If you want to get into the details of all these, again, I spent most of the weekend with that book, and I find the book is really great still. And this is after all these years since I first read it. So I invite anyone and everyone to get a copy of it. If you're interested in, see, we will teach you how consciousness works, and your life is a reflection of consciousness. If you want to dig a little bit deeper into some of these areas, that book is really pretty good. So I think it's definitely worth acquiring. At any given moment in your life, we have the ability to choose to do something different. And we have the ability to say yes to every one of the questions I just asked. You have the ability to move into a yes answer. All those questions, if you move into a place where you can say yes to them, boy, you've traveled a long distance towards self-mastery. You're going to find you're really not concerned. It's not that you don't care about other people, because you do, but you're not concerned with trying to stop them or change them, manipulate them, because you have respect. You know they're doing the best they can with what they know. You're really being more about your Father's business, and you realize, okay, my God, you know, this is not a dress rehearsal. This is my life, and I've kind of like frittered away a bunch of time. I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't care that everybody else is doing what they're doing. I need to do me, and I need to get myself to a point where I can be happy and not caught up in the mess. So if you're willing to give up a lot of these old erroneous zones, which you can pick up the book and you can review them more. If you're willing to give them up and give up some of your needs, if I was in a 12-step program many years ago, NEED would be never-ending excessive demands. If I'm willing to give up all that stuff, having it my way, and if I'm willing to do that, my need to be right, my need to be understood, my need to worry, my need to be offended, and all that stuff, if I'm willing to give it up and let go of all the shoulds, you should do this, you should do that, you all should do what I want you should do. If I'm willing to let that all go, and all my oughts, meaning you ought to do this, you ought to do that. If you want to let go of all that you have learned throughout your life, Dyer says, and ultimately you want to let go of most of that stuff. If you're willing to let go of that, then you're going to start to live in a different kind of world where you're going to start living the affirmative life. You're going to be much happier. There's one more question, and then there's something I want to read to you. Life is always going to be about choice. And you have the choice to determine whether you intend to live your life personally free. Or you can be chained to the expectations that others have of you. Which do you want? Do you want to live your life where you're personally free? I might ask people in the audience, how did you do on that assessment today? Were most of your answers yes, or were they, I'm a work in progress? I know for myself there's always still more work to do, and that's great. We're all moving forward. I want to read next a little passage from the first chapter, which seems to bring all of this forward. And there's a part of it that I thought last night, do I really want to read this? Because it seems a little bit grim. But I decided yes, because it helps put these things into perspective. Wayne Dyer wrote, if you look over your shoulder and you find yourself at a certain point in your life, you've lived a long time. If you look over your shoulder, Dyer said, we have a little bit of information that's always with us. For want of a better name, because there's no really good way to say it, I don't think, each of us know that eventually we're going to make a transition from this earth, right? We don't think about it too much. Maybe we don't like thinking about it. But eventually we're all going to go. And he said, you can fear this information or you can use it for your personal gain. The choice is up to you. With death so endless a proposition and life so breathtakingly brief, ask yourself a question. Should I avoid doing the things I really want to do? Should I live my life as others want me to live my life? Are all these things I do, or the things I'm trying to accumulate, so important? Is putting off life the way to live life? Chances are your answers can be summed up in a few words, he said. Live, be you, enjoy, love. I sent Solomon a reading last night when I was trying to put this together from Auntie Mame, which was basically, life is a banquet. And some of these people, most of these people are out there just, they're missing the banquet, right? So live, be you, enjoy, love. Live, enjoy, love. Be you. Don't try to be like what people want you to be. You can fear death ineffectually, or you can use it to help you learn to live effectively. If you know this isn't a dress rehearsal and you realize, oh my goodness, here I am, whatever age I am. Look, I want to live this life with some fun, some verve, some excitement, and creativity. And honest to God, I don't need to be prisoned to the stuff that I learned from my mother, my father, and all these people. I don't need to be prisoned by anything I've learned anytime. I have the ability to be in a new moment, and I can live. I can really live. I'll go back to Tolstoy. I can't remember reading him since I was probably about 20-something, and then I don't know what I read of him, but there was a character, Ivan Ilyich, and he's speaking of this time where we make a transition, where he's with what he called the great leveler, contemplating his life, a past which was thoroughly dominated by other people's desires for him, a life where he had given up control of himself in order to fit into a system. And he asked himself an important question. What if my whole life has been this way? What if I've not really figured out who I was and what I was here to do? What if I've just been living trying to act out all these roles that were given to me since I was a little boy or a little girl? It occurred to him that he hadn't spent his life the way he could have. It's kind of late to be learning that at the time you're about ready to depart. It occurred to him that his scarcely noticeable impulses, we have these creative impulses every day that tell us you could do something wonderful, but we don't, we stomp them down. It occurred to Ivan that those impulses that were coming from spirit, the ones he always suppressed, might have been the real thing. And all the rest of the things he'd been chasing and trying to live was false, because he's trying to fit in and be what family and people wanted him to be. And the whole arrangement of his life and his family and his social and official interest might have all been false. So here I've been living my life to please people all my life. He tried then to defend all the things to himself, and then he suddenly felt the weakness of what he was defending. There was nothing to defend. He'd just been living for other people. The next time you are contemplating a decision in which you are debating whether not to take charge of yourself, not to make your own choice, ask yourself an important question. How long am I going to be here? Or how long am I going to be dead? With that eternal perspective, you can now make your own choice. And you can leave the worrying, you can leave the fears, the question of whether you can afford it, and the guilt to those who are going to be alive forever. Leave that to them, right? If you don't begin taking these steps, you can anticipate living your entire life the way others say you must. Surely, if your journey here on earth is so brief, it ought to at least be pleasing to you. It's your life. Love it, express it, share it, make it great. And I could go on for another 20 minutes, but this is probably be a good place for me to stop. Your life is here to be enjoyed. You have the ability to be in new moments. You can drop the stories. You can choose to stick they used to say stick with the winners, and I don't really think that way. But what I mean by that is you have the ability to think great thoughts, spend time communing with good ideas, hang out with good people, do things to lift yourself up. And to the extent that you work on your consciousness and work on yourself, you lift yourself up. You're not here to judge another person. You're here to live and thrive and take every single minute of joy you can out of every day that you have.